There we go with the sound. All right. That should do it. Hey, Michelle. Hey, Kathleen. Hey, Dad. All right. Now there should be sound. All right. No, I was just going to do it all silent tonight. Right, Miles? Hey, Karen. My voice is so shot at this point in the year anyway, after all. Aw, look at this guy. Happy Halloween, everybody. Loo, 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 loo. Just plain bourbon for me tonight. Ah, that's good. Tiny drop of water. Take a little of the edge off, like CBD when you're THC. Hey, Jeannie. Hey, Karen. Oh, yeah, I was all over the media the last couple of days. I'm not quite done yet either. Like, it seems like it's been such a long day. It's been like, it feels like hours since I was hanging around with horses. Miles. Look at him. Yeah, it's gonna be bars. So yeah, this was my morning, hanging out at the studio with a couple of horses and a giant Bozo the Clown painting. It's a good life. And from there, I hung around with Beyonce and Taylor. They're going to be opening for me at the rally later. Hey, look, now you're seeing double. 4 of me! Yeah, I love this shot, and it is clearly the Bozo that makes it art. But there's been so much going on today, it seems like hours ago that I was getting licked by a horse. Hey, Patty! Happy Halloween. Yeah, Patty and I, right as soon as I got done with WGN, I picked up Patty, we went to Kenosha, door knocked a turf, then drove back to Chicago just in time for her radio show on WCPT. I got home, stopped and picked up some soup. Made it back in time. I even had time to chop up some pills. Like I actually accidentally got the 5 milligram instead of the 2.5s. So I'll just chop them up. Yeah, yesterday was a radio show on WBEZ. I just got my Google alerts email. I was like, oh yeah, that. I'm all over. Ooh. Hey, John. You know, we have got the Mysterious Chicago Pumpkin Contest tonight, but what I haven't done is tabulate the results. But I will get to it sometime during the tour today. Or I'll just go through it. It's not that much math. So it's already, all the things are loaded up in here. I just haven't, and I've got everybody who is judging has sent in their rankings. Miles. So we'll get to that. Not a ton to tabulate. Miles. Miles knows he's getting some attention anytime I set up like this. He doesn't know if I'm broadcasting, so if I ever just want to pet a cat, I can just set this thing up and stand right here. He will come right over to get all the pets. Isn't that right, Miles? Yeah, Miles should announce. Miles can do the math. I'm having a mild libation. I'm not drinking too much this week. Well, I drank more than I intended to today. We got these mimosas at Frank's Diner in Kenosha. I thought it'd just be a little drink. They brought us out this goblet the size of your head. It was apple cider and salted caramel whiskey. They do not skimp on portions at Frank's Diner in Kenosha. Like, the half plate that I got, like, half for who? Gaston? Who else is here? Hey, Priya. Priya's down in my suitcase that I still need to pack. Then I'm leaving in 48 hours.
Music by Benny Goodman and his orchestra. And the next tune, Sandman.
Oh yeah, Frank's Diner. We had chili omelets today. Oh, they were good. And Priya is walking across over there. And meowing uncharacteristically. Hey, Mags. Got laid over there a couple weeks. Hey, Mona. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming out, one and all. We still got another day in Wisconsin tomorrow. Well, I got a private Graceland tour. Then I'll go straight from there to Wisconsin. We'll do whiskey and a cookie probably from there someplace. Then back home so I can do the 10 a.m. supersized Graceland tour, which is almost sold out. Almost. Hey, Priya. Yeah, go hop up on the couch. Well, I was lying in wait. Timothy, no, it's 9 Dylan concerts. 8 or 9. And some exploring. Apparently the YouTube is delayed. I pushed the same button at the same time, but then all of the little mice that carry the signal around. Sometimes you get a slow one, I guess. Evening, Kathy. I don't know how I have any voice left at all, but I'm not really pushing the effort to sound like this. Always glad to have you, Mary. And hey, Jeff. Happy Halloween, everybody. We're going to let Benny Goodman do a little bit more here. Then we will get started properly. Hey, Grandma Belle.
Benny Goodman is playing for you from the Joseph Urban Room of the Congress Hotel in downtown Chicago. And his next tune, Lights Out.
Yeah, Diane. Yep. You know, we're only an hour from a swing state here, so full intention to leave it all on the field. But yeah, the wind, it is howling outside. It is. There's a full-on leaf storms. I remember when I was a kid, I saw a leaf blow up the slide on the playground. As all these leaves blowing around, and I always consider that's the best leaf storm I ever saw. But every time I see leaves blowing around, I consider, like, this is a leaf storm watch, in effect. Hey, Kathy. Good evening, everybody. I fully didn't realize it was Halloween this morning, to be honest. Somebody sent me a happy Halloween message about half an hour after I got to the coffee shop. Like, oh yeah, it's Halloween. So I got gigs before, I got gigs after. It all kind of lines up. Hey, Amy. Hey, Deb and Tom. We're going to let Benny finish up this tune. We will get started properly. Richard, you're right. We got to keep Halloween with you all through the year. When Halloween time is over, fill your days with fear. Honestly, the dollar store switched over to Christmas stuff weeks ago. Can I once start improperly? Here we go. Spring break, whoa! Hey, Mary. Hey, Jan. I better get more tips for that. But at Frank's Diner today, all of the employees were dressed as Hooters girls, including all the guys with curly mustaches and tattoos. Alright, this is Benny Goodman coming to you live from the Congress Hotel in 1936. The very room where we had Mystericon this year. Alright, finishing this up. Hey, Bill and Judy. Hey, Claire. This is another reason that I tend to start a few minutes after 8 o'clock. People start showing up a couple minutes late. But all right, that is Benny Goodman from the Joseph Urban Room of the Congress Hotel in downtown Chicago, early in 1936. Not quite 90 years ago. All right, everybody, I think it is time that we go ahead and get started. I'm Adam Seltzer from Mysterious Chicago Tours. You might have seen me lately on WBEZ, CBS, WGN this morning, WCPT this evening. If you work in the ghost biz and will reliably show up when you're asked to, Halloween can get awfully busy. We've got an awful lot of stuff going on, a lot of cool stuff too. But you know, this morning I started my day hanging out with Beyonce and Taylor, you know, as I do. And you know, and there are other guests. I got to hang out with them a little bit as well. I really enjoyed meeting the horses and getting licked by horses. But really, it is the Bozo the Clown thing that really makes that art. Just another day. Seems like way more than 8 or 9 hours ago that all that happened right now. So, all right, welcome along. I've been a tour guide and historian here in Chicago for 20 years now. I just finished up this year's edition of the Lincoln Park Zoo Haunted History Tours, author of such books as H.H. Holmes' The True History of the White City Devil. Oh, that's that one. Mysterious Chicago, the book, H.H. Holmes, Ghosts of Chicago, now available in a 10th anniversary expanded edition, not to mention a book called Just Kill Me, which is all about a ghost tour guide who makes places more haunted by killing people at them. Now also, of course, Graceland Cemetery, Chicago Stories, Symbols, and Secrets. This kind of stuff has even gotten me like written into conspiracy theories. This guy thought that I was being paid by the government to help convince people that serial killers were real, which he says is just some kind of a feminist hoax. Some people, man. The things that stupid people do to make themselves feel smart, you know. Also, I was the inspiration for the Ghost Tour Guide and Scritch Scratch by Lindsay Curry, a book much more popular than any of my novels. I have been doing this for a really long time. This is a picture of me doing these ghost tours back nearly 20 years ago now. Here's me in 2006. Look how young I look. I can almost tell you exactly which story I'm telling right there. Here's around the same time period. Here I am with some orbs floating out of my butt. But all right, so these are just some of the places that we have covered over the years, the supposedly haunted places around Chicago. Well, what we're doing tonight, of course, is a virtual tour. We do these every Thursday night. They're not always ghost tours. They're neighborhood tours, they're history tours, they're cemetery tours. One of the fun things, though, about virtual tours is that we can go anywhere in town. We can go anywhere in time and space on the time travel pub crawls. So, in this situation, we can go all over the city, including places that would be too crowded on a Halloween Thursday, that would be inaccessible, that would be too far away from each other. But let's just start this out the way that I normally do. So here we are at 600 North Clark, the former Rock and Roll McDonald's, now the modernist Nightmare McDonald's, next to the Rainforest Cafe, which isn't that spooky, except they used to have this dude in a frog suit who scared the bejesus out of me. But right over here in 1888, right about where the parking meter is now, when this block was all houses of ill repute, a woman named Tilly Wolfe was stabbed in the face with a sharpened umbrella stick that went through her skull and into her brain, killing her instantly. This was how Tilly Wolfe got over the unfortunate habit of being alive. Now, the very same week, somebody was murdered in Fido, the fake Irish pub across the street here on the right. Now, Fido has long been said to be haunted. About half of the employees, last time I talked there, had seen a woman in a white nightgown who always shows up on the second floor, or sometimes on the stairs in between. People will just see her sitting there. One manager used to make fun of people for her, then one day he came into the office like, okay, I'm never making fun of you guys again. Because he had seen her just sitting there casually. Now, right across the street from that, where the Maggiano's is now, this used to be the St. Regis Hotel back in the day. Back in the 1920s, the mobsters used to shove showgirls out the window of this place, including Ray Wilson, who officially the story was she jumped. Nobody actually believed it. Now, just across the street from this, it's not the same building anymore, but right where the Aloft Hotel is, was a place called the C&O Restaurant where a gangster named Hoopsa Daisy Connors was shot through the eye and the groin one grim day in 1929. Never figured out whether that was, whether it was one shot or two. I can kind of imagine like the magic bullet that goes through both the eye and the groin. But really, once you've shot somebody in the eye or the groin, you can stop. So all of this is to let you guys know ahead of time this is going to be an inspiring and uplifting tour for everybody tonight. We are going to talk about puppies and ponies and horsies and kitties and rainbows and flowers and sunshine and unicorns. Now, I am, of course, kidding. This is a ghost tour. I have had people complain that the stories were too gruesome, but it's a ghost tour. We'll be talking about death, disease, destruction, drowning, dismay, dismemberment, disfiguration, decapitation, discombobulation, defenestration, decomposition, decay, and Donald Trump, other scary things. So, everybody sit back, relax, pour yourself a drink. Before we stop about this fire station coming up, here's a quick word from our driver, who is Lindsay Curry tonight.
Welcome to the Spirits Bus. I'm excited to be your driver for the night. I'd like to remind everyone to keep your arms, legs, and most importantly, your heads inside the bus at all times, or you may not get them back. In addition, the first person to sing the wheels on the bus this evening will be promptly dropped off in the lake.
This is a rule with most drivers that I have ever had. Hail to the bus driver indeed. So here we have this mid-century style fire station. I talked about this on a couple of programs lately because right where truck number 3 is, where that sign is, just about 100 men were hanged by the neck until they were dead in this spot. This is built on the site of the old jail building. So right in the middle of it was a place called the Death Cell. This is where condemned men would spend their last nights, though often they would spend a night there planning to be hanged the next morning, but get a reprieve. Quite a few people spent a night that turned out not to be the last, but many of those who were spending time there reported seeing ghosts. Now, in particular, it came to be a common story in the 1920s especially that one of the guys haunting the place was Johann Hawk. One of our early mustache serial killers. I'll have a book about this guy out next year. By the time they caught up to Johann Hawk, he had already proposed to what they thought would have been wife number 55. I can confirm 20 of them. But a few of those people on the list that I've was able to come up with weren't on any list before, so who knows how many we might be missing. Here he is in the death cell with jailer Whitman, preying on what was supposed to be his last night. I think this is one of the times he ended up getting a reprieve. But finally, he was marched to the gallows. This is a composite photo published by the Chicago Evening American that also, as was the practice for the far-flung regional papers, they're like Town and Country edition, they wrote this up, Hawk hanged, the extra edition, several hours before the event actually happened. This particular piece is almost a miracle of pre-writing. They got almost every single detail correct, just writing all the stuff that was definitely going to happen, like the prisoner would shudder, the place would be drafty, eerie silence would fall over. All of that stuff was there. It was just a guess because they'd been through that before. It was all the stuff that happened in all of the hangings. Thereafter, people who were put up for the night over in the death cell would often say that they were hearing the ghost of Johann Hawk. But other times there were stories of others. Louis Ling, who bit into a dynamite cap before he could be hanged as one of the Haymarket anarchists, was said to be heard walking around the place, occasionally singing songs. There are more than one person here who is said to haunt it while singing songs. And there is a bit of a tradition here. Nicholas Viana, an early gangster who was hanged in 1921, sang Miserere on the way to the death cell. And he sang Mother O' Mine. They called him Nicholas the Choir Singer. Not to mention, of course, this is a place up on North Campbell in the Lincoln Square neighborhood. All decked up for Halloween. This was the home of a guy by the name of Carl Wanderer. One day, Carl Wanderer came up to a drifter at Madison and Halstead and said, "Hey, buddy, you got to help me out. I'm in the doghouse with my wife. She's about to have a baby. Doesn't think I'm good enough to be a dad. So if you'll come up and pretend to mug us tomorrow so I can punch you in the face and look like a hero, I'll give you $10. So Wanderer, now pictured here, loaned the drifter a pistol. The next day, he was walking home from the movies with his wife, and this drifter jumped out from that stairway that we just saw. Pulled out the gun and said, "All right, give me all your bucks, man." So Wanderer pulled out a gun of his own and shot the drifter to death. Then he turned to the side and shot his wife to death, too. As had been his plan the entire time. He didn't want to get married. He wanted to get back into the army or something. There are various explanations that he gave over the year or so of his trial. Nothing really sticks. We don't really know what was going through this guy's head. There are a lot of theories. I've been through the whole trial transcript, and I don't really have a solid theory of my own. But we had on the force at the time, the police force, Detective Sergeant John W. Norton, one of very few police officers of the era that had no major scandals. He had been with the force ever since the H.H. Holmes murder castle investigation 25 years before. By this time, he was kind of like the Columbo of the police department. He talked to Carl for a bit, told him how sorry he was that his wife had died. And then after buddying up, he said, "Now there's just one more thing I don't understand. Now, Carl, you and the drifter both had the same model of pistol, and they were one serial number off. Don't you think that's a weird coincidence?" At which point Carl got flustered. They were both my gun. The drifter just took one from me, and by was led to confess. So after a couple of trials, though, he ended up being hanged here. Before they hanged him, he sang a song on the gallows called "Old Pal, Why Don't You Answer Me? I Don't Hate You Guys Nearly Enough to Actually Sing It." But that is the ghost. People have said that on cold mornings outside of this fire station, especially Friday mornings, that's Hangman's Day, they say that they've actually heard Carl Wanderer out there singing that song. So, all right, let us move on from here. We're going to virtually move over. We just mentioned H.H. Holmes a minute ago, the Devil in the White City guy. Who wants to go to the body dump? This is another fun thing about virtual tours. There's built condos over this place now, but there used to be this really spooky vacant lot in Dead End Street. Here we go. So here, near Damon, Elston, and Fullerton on Sealy Avenue, back when I was doing 300 ghost tours a year, there was this vacant lot on a dead-end street. There's also, you can see, it's kind of dark in here, but you can see this kind of a curved garage. The curved garage represents approximately the place where there used to be this 150-foot-long building. At the time, there was even one wall that we thought was probably original, that in 1895 was said by the Chicago newspapers to have been owned and operated by H.H. Holmes, the Devil in the White City guy. It was supposed to be a glass-bending factory. He is not known to have bent any glass there. By the time the cops found it, Holmes had been gone for a couple of years. All they found was the wreck of a very long furnace and several pages of his paperwork. Now, not everybody was convinced that this was all real. The Philadelphia Inquirer said, "Oh, great, you found another Holmes castle. Go on." They said at the same time, Chicago is probably the greatest place in the world for things to happen that never really happened. But most people were at least convinced that he had something to do with the thing, and there's only so many things that a known serial killer might have been doing with a 150-foot-long furnace. So we started calling this place the Body Dump on tours. We were just coming here as an excuse to talk about H.H. Holmes. At the time, it was right on my bus tour route. So it was very convenient, but lo and behold, as we started taking people here, we started getting strange pictures and strange sightings of ghosts. Like you'll see over there behind the tree. Really quite sure there was nobody there when that photograph was taken. I'm over off to the side of it. There weren't many people on the tour that night. This was all done with a company that was not particularly popular. Around that same time, you can see this in between the woman and the serial killer van is this very strange silhouette. Right in the middle of it was this tree that was always oozing like reddish brown gunk. Probably just because of the fact that there was iron oxide in the soil from when this area was a junkyard. But you go to the Holmes body dump and see a black branch with blood that keeps dripping. It's pretty spooky no matter what it turns out to be. There's also the same night that this weird shadow thing was taken, there was this shot. You can see once again a couple of people standing there, then this weird kind of figure. We zoom in on this. Seems like you can almost see a face there. Now, with most of these, I can come up with some idea of what it might really be, because these things usually do turn out to be something other than a dead guy up and floating around. But then again, they also do really freak me out on occasion. So, this is also the place where we had probably the scariest thing that ever happened to me on a tour. This is, we were in this little bus. The driver was this guy I really couldn't stand. The windows were all fogged up. It was a snowy night. I don't think it was the night that this shot was taken. But we were backing the bus up and we hit something. We felt the impact. I thought we had hit somebody's car, and I told the driver, "Oh man, you hit somebody's car." And he said, "No, it's just a tree." I swear that's what this jerk talked like. He was one of those guys like, "Well, it's okay if I say racial slurs because I hate everyone equally." So anyway, the last night that I worked with that guy, I had a massive bowl of chili right before work. So we thought we had hit something. I thought it was a car. He said it was just a tree. Then somebody in the back of the bus said, "No, there was a woman back there." So I panicked, ran out of the bus, ran to the back. There was nothing anywhere near us. There was no tree. There was no car. There was no fire hydrant, no curb, no footprints in the fresh snow either, which was terrifying for a minute there. But I had to reason, if we were going to hit somebody with the bus, I'd much rather it be somebody who died in 1891. So, all right, let us move on from here. Another place that I covered earlier today. It's one that I can't resist, even though there are a lot of places where you can read a number of accounts of it being haunted, but you never really find a first-hand account of the ghost. One of my favorite examples, we'll get to in a second. So here we are at 49th and Loomis. See this railroad track going by. Probably would have been grade level in 1894. But this was one of the nastiest sites of the Pullman strike. Of course, we talk about Pullman a lot around here. 1894, he cut the salaries of his workers by about a third, but didn't lower the rents in the apartments they were required to rent from him. So there were massive strikes here. President Cleveland had to send in the troops, and it got really rather violent. Now, there was a soldier or a rioter who was decapitated within the riot. It didn't happen right here. It was like an accident. A powder magazine that a guy was taking along several miles east of here got his head blown off. But there's long been a rumor that somebody was decapitated here, somebody on the cavalry, which has now led to the place being haunted by a headless horseman. I wouldn't want to see anybody decapitated, but I do love a good headless horseman story. So especially when I see these pictures of it at night, I mean, look at this. If I were a headless horseman, this is exactly where I would be hanging out. Look at this. Now, the railroad tracks up here are disused, but I found that you could go right up there. This is the old Grand Trunk Railroad. They really knew how to name a railroad in those days. When spooks have a midnight jamboree, they make it up with fiendish glee. The ghosts are bad, but the one that's cursed is the headless horseman. He's the worst. Beware, take care, he rides along. That's right, he's a fright on Halloween night. So this is an old disused railroad track, but the story goes that you can still see a headless horseman riding by here. Now, theoretically, if there really is a ghostly headless horseman here, we don't necessarily know that it's really from the Pullman strikes. Now, these railroad tracks were known as absolute death traps, especially back when they were grade level. And at the time of the Pullman strikes in 1894, they probably would have been grade level, not raised up like that. The reason they started raising them up in the turn of the early 20th century is that they were death traps. People were getting killed at them all the time. And actually, this is what led to Carter Harrison, our mayor in 1893, being assassinated. Patrick Pendergast, the guy who assassinated him, thought that he was going to make him corporation counsel. He said that he had a secret plan to raise all the tracks above grade level without it actually costing the city a penny. He could never remember how that plan worked. The guy was clearly schizophrenic. You asked him, he'd probably say something about, well, I have the concept of a plan, etc. But while we're moving around through time and space, this is Bethania Cemetery, the one adjacent to Resurrection Cemetery. This is said to be haunted by a ghostly old woman who cusses people out. People walk by and think that she got locked inside, so they'll say, hey, can you, do you need something? And she'll cuss them out and disappear. This is the kind of ghost I plan to be myself one day. I once worked for a company that was pretty sure they knew who it was the ghost of. It wasn't because they'd actually had an interview with the ghost. There was just some guy on the tour, and I was like, oh, that'd be my aunt. She's buried there. That sounds exactly like something she would do. I got her name down here someplace, but I don't want to smear anybody. Speaking of smear like mustard, here's a sausage factory. Other side of town, this is on Diversey near Damon. This is the old Lutgert sausage factory. I'll let it wander along here a little bit. When I first came into this business, everybody said this building was long gone. Turned out it was actually still there. This is Adolf Lutgert over here. He was the sausage king of Chicago back in the days before Abe Froman came to town. And of course, you cannot tell this story without making that joke. Adolf Lutgert owned the sausage factory here, was married to a woman by the name of Louisa. That was supposed to be translucent. Like Reynolds, work on that. So, one day some neighbors noticed that Louisa was not around anymore. And Adolf said, oh, she has gone to Kenosha for 2 weeks. It'll be all right. Then another couple of weeks went by and they hadn't seen her. And they thought, okay, nobody goes to Kenosha for 2 weeks. This was about 20 years before Frank's Diner was founded. Nowadays, you go to Kenosha for 2 weeks, like everybody's like, oh, he tried to eat the full garbage plate. You're still going to be recovering from that for days. It'll be a great couple of weeks, but you're going to be recovering a while. So, police started to look into what had happened to this Louisa woman. Eventually, they found that on the day she was last seen, smoke was seen coming out of the chimney of the sausage curing plant, even though they were closed for cleaning at the time. They spoke to the janitor there, who said that he had been in charge of mixing up something he called a Schleimisch. His English was not very good, but he could make himself heard when he said Schleimisch. So in the midst of this investigation, Lutgert walked into the police station, pounded his fist on the desk, and said, you have hired ghosts. And they said, what? And he said, you have hired ghosts, I know you have. Apparently he had been seeing Louisa's ghost around the place, and decided that the police must have hired somebody to dress up like her ghost to try to scare him into confessing. Which, frankly, is exactly the kind of shit the Chicago police in 1897 might have pulled. A woman named Agatha Tosh, who actually lived right at the body dump, had to go on the stand during the trial and swear that no, she had never put on a white sheet and tried to scare Mr. Lutgert into confessing. Eventually, they found some bones that they proved to be human down in the basement of this place, along with a ring with Louisa's initials, LL, and became convinced that he had boiled her body down in a sausage curing vat. And it was almost certainly true. There's some really good stuff on the Patreon recently. The Chicago Evening Journal spied on the jury deliberations. They lowered somebody down the air shaft so they could listen in on the jury. And then the next edition, they were transcribing the jury chat verbatim. The jury was just stunned by this, as they would be. And the journal just admitted to this. Like a week later, they were showing a whole diagram of how they pulled this off. It's not been digitized anywhere, but we got a couple of those issues have been posted on the Patreon fairly recently. Is the Patreon posted up here? It'll be on the next slide. Patreon Adam Chicago. But naturally, there are rumors even now that Louisa haunts the place. The building is all condos now. And a lot of it is just, it's kind of a running joke, especially down in the basement. Anytime the lights flicker, they blame it on Louisa. Anytime there's a brownout, they blame it on Louisa. But a report of the ghost of Mrs. Lutgert goes back to at least 1901, about 4 years after she died. In this particular article, the ghost was said to be running around all over the place and chasing Officer Blowell through the basement of the place. Officer Blowell was a police officer in Chicago who really loved to tell ghost stories. And most of his ghost stories kind of sound like Three Stooges episodes. We're going to hop over. Let's hop from here all the way down to the back of the Yards neighborhood. Here in the back of the Yards neighborhood, there's a house that the owner has asked me not to identify specifically. And it takes some doing because most of the articles that were ever written about this, and there are only a couple, but they usually get it wrong. Most of them are quoting this book that mentioned it in France that got the number wrong. But there's a house in the back of the Yards neighborhood that was occupied by a guy named John Unterlander, who was a spirit medium by trade. He would hold seances in this place for money. There were rumors among the neighborhood that there was also been a murder there just a few years before, back in the 1920s. But the thing is, he was renting the place out. He owned it, but he was renting out rooms. But there became so many rumors in the neighborhood that it was haunted that he decided to go before the county and try to get the market value of it lowered so he could pay lower property taxes. And it worked. He convinced them, look, everybody thinks the place is haunted, and as a spirit medium, I will tell you it is not haunted. Ghosts don't just hang around houses. They have too much self-respect for that. But he said that, yes, the rumors that it is haunted have kept me from being able to rent it out, so the value of it should be lowered down. And it actually worked. Feels good to be a gangster, you know. Let's go down the stairs. This is the Lion House of the Lincoln Park Zoo. I can't take groups down here anymore because too many people decided they would just plow right past me and use this as a bathroom break. But of all of the places that I go in the Lincoln Park Zoo, the thing I hear about most consistently from the staff is that the women's bathroom at the Lion's House is incredibly haunted. Now, the story goes that one day, an unseen hand threw a bottle of Windex at one of the cleaning crew. Since then, they have only gone down to this place in pairs. They're so freaked out by it. Just this year, one of the employees came up to me after the tour and said, okay, I got a story for you. I was closing the place down. I was the only one in the Lion House and only one even nearby the Lion House, and I went into one of those stalls. And while I was sitting there, I didn't notice anybody go past. Normally you'd see the shadow of somebody's foot, but I heard one of the other stall doors slam shut and then lock. And I was just about should I say something? Hadn't seen anything go by, but they'd been looking at their phone the whole time. So when they came out, they found that in this picture, all of the doors were wide open. None of them were locked. Nothing had come back out either. Pretty sure they hightailed it out of there pretty quickly. Now, this is the difficult story to tell. I keep feeling like I want to repeat this one. It's you're on the toilet for this whole story. Why do you really want me repeating this to people? But really, it's kind of the trick with haunted bathrooms. And of course, there are lots of haunted bathroom stories out there, not just here, but elsewhere. The other one is about a cop taking a pee here, an off-duty cop who was brought in for additional security. He was a guy. He wandered all the way up and down the stalls and decided that he ought to make use of the facilities, having determined that nobody was there. While he was so engaged, he heard a voice behind him saying, "You can't be here." Turned around and found just enough that you could see if there was a woman back there. So while continuing to pee, he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, well, you can't be here either. We're actually closed right now." And when he finally finished what he was doing and turned back around, he found nobody. So this is the Lion House from the outside. It's recently been renovated, but even with the renovation, I understand the stories are still going on. The most recent one that I got, I think, came from post-renovation. So we don't know who this might be the ghost of who is haunting this place. One thing I do know is that it's very close to the site of Suicide Bridge, a 40-foot high bridge over the Lincoln Park Lagoon. But also, when Lincoln Park first opened a public bathroom, there was an architectural magazine that mentioned it and also noted that there would be two attendants. There would be a man to whom is paid $55 a month and a woman who receives $50 a month. Statistically, this is ahead of the gender gap, but it has always been my contention that that woman is the one who is haunting this place now. Because why not? Another example of one that I never find anybody who actually sees the coast is, there's the Biograph Theater. Nearby is the alley where John Dillinger, the bank robber, was shot back in 1934. And you can find internet articles that say literally hundreds of people have seen this ghost, but I would really love to meet like one of them. But they've got like a Chicago Crime Tours mural out there now, but this is the mural that was up back when I was first working here. Raise this up a bit. I would always stand right there and ask people, you notice anything weird about this mural? And sooner or later, somebody would notice that the guy's got 6 fingers who's playing the guitar. I turn around, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die. Dun, 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 dun. The water tower is often said to have a ghost in it. They say that a man hanged himself in there during the Great Chicago Fire, and now and then you can see his silhouette swinging back and forth in the windows. I could never see anything in the windows. There's no data about a suicide taking place there during the Great Chicago Fire. There was a guy who jumped off of it about 4 years later. And not to mention, this was the pumping station where they would pump water through a mile-long tunnel that went out into the lake. See, in 1864, they realized, maybe the reason we're having all of this cholera is because our drinking water is disgusting. We're pouring all of our sewage into the river, and then the river goes into the lake and we drink that water right back up. Maybe if we went out about a mile into the lake, the water would be clearer. So they started digging this mile-long tunnel, but there was a murder in the tunnel while it was being built. A couple of the workers, one of them stabbed the other to death. So for a few years before they built a longer tunnel, Chicago's drinking water was literally flowing through a murder site. A murder tunnel, no less. All right, we got a few more minutes here. What else should we cover? I got most of the famous things in here. Heck, let's go to Bachelor's Grove. Dun dun dun. So, this is the road through the Midlothian, the Rubio Woods Forest Preserves in Midlothian, making our way up to a more or less abandoned cemetery. The cemetery's got a lot of stories. I've always thought things were spookier out in the woods around it. Like there's this old well that you can come across. There's also old, film canisters full of pot residue. And lots of other signs that people have been using this place as a party pit since at least the 1950s. It's Midlothian, the teenagers don't have much else to do. Also, you can cross the streams out in the woods. It's something ghost hunters are never really supposed to do. But eventually, let me speed this up. This is a long walk. The woods are just trees. The trees are just wood. I have no fear, nor no one should. There was a time when this was nothing but graffiti, vandalism, and litter, but a couple of competing groups have worked to clean it up in recent years. I say competing because they're almost like gangs. They get very territorial about this place. But one of the many, many, many ghost stories that go around about it is people say that they've seen a house out in the woods nearby it. This house kind of appears and disappears. So there's one little bit of discrepancy. They always describe it as like a white farmhouse, but some people say it's 1 story, some people say it's 2 story. Now, fairly recently, somebody found a picture of a house that used to be out in the woods. The old Schmidt farmhouse. And you look at this, you could probably see how this might be described as either 1 or 2 stories. So we got this picture here. If you see it from the front, it looks like 1 story plus a really big roof. See it from the side, it looks like a 2-story house. We'll move over a bit. The house appears and disappears. Some people say that if you go inside of it, you will never return. Others say if you walk up towards it, it'll get smaller and smaller and smaller and just kind of disappear. But here is perhaps the most famous grave, because this is the site where in 1991, Judy Huff Fells took this photograph and swears that there was no woman sitting on that place when she took the shot. So this is actually a detail of a much larger photograph. She was good enough to send me a scan of her original copy of it. Now, Judy was taking pictures out there this day. She was with the Ghost Research Society, I believe, one of those groups, and was experimenting with a new infrared camera. Infrared will get you pictures like this in black and white. See how it's almost like, it's black and white, but it's almost like glowing. And she had never used the camera before and had such trouble getting pictures from it developed that she never really used it again. So we can't necessarily know if it's just kind of like an infrared thing picking up an old heat signature or something like that, which they're, I guess, known to do. They got this very strange picture. But the rumor goes that this is the ghost of a woman named, she's called Mrs. Rogers by kids in the neighborhood, at least off and on, which leads some people to think that it is the ghost of a woman named Lulu Rogers, who is buried here and died in 1944 in a traffic accident. There are actually a couple of pictures of Luella Fulton Rogers was her full name. That's her on the top right. Yeah, just don't look too hard at these guys. They're weird. Now, some of these pictures, you wonder, like, was everybody blitzed or something? Had they all just been smacked upside the head right before the shot was taken? But on the right, honestly, just to keep us all from getting too scared, can we point out how she kind of has this Amelia Bedelia vibe? Well, it's kind of a rite of passage for ghost hunters to have their picture taken on that gravestone. Move on from there just a little bit. Is that once while I was out running a tour for another company, it was me and one other guide were running the tours for this company. But that particular night I was running because he was out doing a Halloween feature at night at Bachelor's Grove, which you can't really go there at night normally. But if you get a filming permit and bring the sheriff, as they did that night with the news, it's all right. So he was wandering around by this spot. He was so freaked out by this that he called me mid-tour to tell me about it. Now, this guy was a professional psychic medium by day. So he was standing here, like there was a kid here, he lost something, he lost some money. And according to the newspaper, he seemed like he'd lost it himself and wandered out into this pond that stands adjacent to the cemetery. Now, rumors that Al Capone used to dump bodies here are just the kind of thing some people would say, not something that has even a shred of data behind it, but it looks rather disgusting. Now, people say that they've walked through it without effect, not even snapping turtles that are hungry for wieners, as one rumor goes. But it looks like you can see like 9 different diseases in it. This would have been taken just a couple of weeks before he went out there. But he wandered into this pond, started fishing around, and here's the guy himself, Ken. I think he lives in Vegas now, and pulled up a Liberty Walking silver dollar from out of the ground. Now, if he was just going to plant it, he would have had just as good an effect by just burying it in the ground, not risking walking into this pond. It's one of a number of haunted pond stories around here. This is Maple Lake, which is near St. James of the Sag off Archer Avenue. Said to be haunted by a glowing red ball of light that will kind of appear above it. Now, one thing I did notice, I went through the papers of a funeral home from nearby here one time, and just page after page you see somebody drowned in Maple Lake. Have I ever wondered why it is illegal to be in a cemetery after dark? Debbie, it's usually because they're private property and they're closed after dark. And in the case of Bachelor's Grove, it's because they know so many people go out there to get wasted. There was also a few people who died while digging a well here way back in the 1850s. I think I got time for one more before we move on to the pumpkins. One more quick one. This is a firefighter by the name of Frank Levy. In 1924, there was a big fire at Curran Hall, and some people said that he had been standing there with his hand against the window saying, "Something's going on. This is my last day with the fire department." And they all said, Frank, come off it. Then, sure enough, he went to the Curran Hall fire. Deadliest fire in 14 years. He was killed that day. And when they came back, they found that the handprint was still there. Now, this is a newspaper photo of it. It was from the Chicago Daily Times. And it was probably retouched a little bit. It was standard practice to retouch photos to make them appear presentable in the newspaper. But this one was taken several years later, and it really looks like not only was it still there, but they had actually kind of lionized it. And the article accompanying it says that, yeah, it's been there for years. They don't clean it. By one account, they tried to have it cleaned and just couldn't get rid of the handprint, which ties it into some old folklore motifs about the handprint that would never disappear. Eric, no, I haven't covered tapeworm. This isn't I just did on the After Hours tour a couple of weeks ago. I talked about it a little bit at the zoo tours this year, but of course I had to clean up the story a lot. But anyway, everybody, it is now 8:42. I gotta save my voice a little bit. I still got a couple more days left. But let us move down here. Want to do a quick tribute to my various tour bus drivers. This is Willie. Rest in peace, Willie. He was my driver for years. Here's Hector when I was being Zombie Flanders. And Wendy as well. Ran hundreds and hundreds of tours with these people. Let's see now. Where is the Mysterian Pumpkin show? All right. So, every year, we have a Mysterian Pumpkin contest, a jack-o'-lantern contest. I have not seen the names attached to these people yet. John has sent them over to me, but I was in the car heading to Kenosha at the time, so I haven't had a chance to look at that. My family has gone through. Several people in my family have ranked their top few favorite pumpkins out of these, and from that, I will shortly tabulate the first, second, and third prize for the Mysterian Pumpkin contest. So, this is number 1. Oh, I'm digging this. This is actually jack-o'-lanterns within a jack-o'-lantern. Cat sitting on top of 3 little pumpkins to roll out of sight. And some nice tree branches on the side, too. Really a cool one there. There are 2 pictures of pumpkin number 2. This is it when it is unlit. And this, see how much of an improvement this is when they light it. Then you really see what it looks like. After all, they're meant to be seen when they're lit. Pumpkin number 3. Taxation is theft. And also an octopus. So it seems there are several of them associated with number 3 here. Pumpkin number 4. BB-8. Excellent use of multiple pumpkins here. I believe this is a pumpkin on top of another pumpkin being made into BB-8 from the Star Wars sequel series. I must be feeling this. Number 5. Coming in at number 5. This is a pink unicorn pumpkin. Coming all the way from the Pink Pony Club. I, of course, today just hung out with a couple of ponies. But I'm digging this. I like it when people really take advantage of the fact that you can, in fact, you don't just have to carve, you can paint and decorate too. Here is number 6. 6A. I like the lines on this one. This is just a skull and a raven. Not unlike, there's actually a grave at Graceland Cemetery that is a frieze that looks like this. And they have also sent a look of how it looks when it is glowing. Very cool. Number 7. Look at this. This is Monster Cereals. You can see a Fruity Yummy Mummy up there and Count Chocula. I like this. That's just me. Number 8. Now this is a whole mixture. We've got a pumpkin. It looks like a pumpkin within a pumpkin. It's kind of bright. Almost looks like it's going driving there. Are Cyclops allowed to drive? Number 9. Number 9. Number 9. Very classic ghost. Nice outline. I love the tongue. Number 10. Oh, this is the Scream. Look. I'm digging that. Excellent use of the differentiated carving versus shaving. And finally, number 11. A ghost coming out of a ghost. A ghost coming out of a jack-o'-lantern. A couple of them this year made use of the jack-o'-lantern within a jack-o'-lantern motif. That is very clever. All right, so if you will give me a second, I will put the Benny Goodman back on for a second and start tabulating our results. So everybody, here's Benny. right, that was some mighty fine ciphering that I just did right there. All right, I have ciphered to the utmost, everybody, and I have looked up who has done what now. So, all right, we've got the top three. It's all very close, too. Very, very close votes came from my family. Coming in at number 3 is Pumpkin number 1. With the cat on top of the jack-o'-lanterns. I love this one myself. It's simple, but it's perfect. It's simple, but it's creative. Coming in at number 2, BB-8. I forgot to announce number 1 is by Donna Yearling. And number 4 is Megan Campbell Stark. And the winner this year, coming in at number 1, is by Susan Buffalo. Let's put that up in Flickr as well. Simple, elegant, distinctly Halloweeny, unmistakable in its meaning. Congratulations, everybody. These were all absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad that so many people are still getting involved in these things. It's wonderful. Congratulations, Susan. All right. And with that, everybody, I could go on all night with this particular tour, as you all know. But as you also all know, it's Halloween season. My voice is actually like this. But amazing work, everybody, all around. So, very quick plug. I think there are still a couple of tickets remaining for the one more ticketed event that we've got scheduled so far this year. That is Saturday morning, Graceland Cemetery Supersize Tour at 10 o'clock. So, and with that, everybody, we will put the Benny Goodman back on, and we will just hang out for a while. While I try to maintain what energy I still have left. And such brain skills as I still have left. Thanks, everybody. It's been a week of leaving it all on the field. Of course, your best bet is to join the Patreon. You get up to 4 posts a week. Evening, Katie.
And here's another tune that they'll be playing as long as we dance.
Now, I got 2 more walking tours. I got a private one tomorrow. Good night, Bob. Be yourself. Katie, Miles was here when we started. Gather, yes, yes. That's all right, Elena. After I get back from town, we'll see about what the weather is like before I add a couple more. But I'd like to do Rose Hill again, especially. And no one didn't win. They were all awesome. Good night, Eleanor. Good night, Molly. Oh yeah, I should say who carved the rest of the entries. Let's go back and do all of that. Ah, the kind of thing I would have thought of if I wasn't absolutely wiped out right now. I imagine this will all be posted on the Mysterian group anyway. This is Donna. This is from Sue Billick. I'm terribly sorry if I get the names pronounced incorrectly here. Number 3 is by Falana Perez. 4 is by Megan Campbell Stark. 5 is Sarah Margaret Engstrom. 6, as we said, Susan Buffalo. We have also got number 7, Molly Persian. We have got Mary Nunali, did number 8. Jan Hernandez Banis did number 9. Whereas 10, The Scream, is by Michael Banis. So really these two go together. I can see that. It's going to make for a very elegant walk up the walk, these two. And Lee Malik presents number 11. All right.
Helen Ward sings once more.
Yes, everybody, this has been a very long couple of weeks. Even more so than usual, even. We've still got tomorrow. Tomorrow I've got the morning with nothing really scheduled other than find a grave. Carol, did I trick or treat as a kid? Did I? In fact, let me show you my favorite costume. One of them, the favorite costume that we have a picture of. All right. So, yep, this is me dressed as a building in 1989. I remember helping Dad make this. I remember spray painting it off by the side of the house. It's made out of 3 boxes. So my brother the Joker, my sister the Witch. There's something I just noticed about this today. If you really zoom in on it, you can see peeking through the logo of World Book Encyclopedia. You can see me in there a bit. Then up at the top, the ape. Now the next year I was a more specific, well, this is the Empire State. The next year, which I thought was silver for years, partly because of this. But the next year I was 801 Grand at the Principal Building in Des Moines. And that was a really great costume that I don't think I helped as much with. That was all Dad. We don't seem to have a photograph of that one, though. Well, you could say that set me off on the path towards my thing. We did, Jeff, we did Beggar's Night. And there's a peculiar Des Moines tradition that before you say trick or treat, you have to tell a joke. Like something like, why did the man put his car in the oven? 'Cause he wanted a hot rod. Paula, I live in an apartment. We don't really get trick-or-treaters. They're over on the other side of Western Avenue from us. I saw a lot of them around the other side of Western. Oh yeah, like about 10 years ago, the St. Andrews Inn regulars were saying they knew exactly who made up the ghost story. Oh, Lydia, the cats are great. Miles is actually right here. He's hanging out in my suitcase. Also, I went looking up Halloween costume pictures earlier. Also came across this one from the early 80s. There's a Polaroid of me and my friend Ben. I'm Superman there. Ben's a crayon, as you could tell. I believe I had a blonde bowl cut when I was a kid. I know I got some others here. There's one other. From 1988. A mummy. Sweatsuit, toilet paper, and one of those masks that you can smell, probably just from sitting there if you ever used them. Hey, what is that? Okay, there's a black cat Halloween decoration next to me. I'm kind of fascinated by looking at what was on our mantle. Got a lamb. Mostly the usual stuff. Plus a pumpkin, a couple of greeting cards, and some spoopy decorations.
This half hour of rhythm was presented by the Raja Rhythm. Benny Goodman and his orchestra playing for you from the Joseph Urban Room of the Congress Hotel in downtown Chicago. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
All right, that is Benny Goodman wrapping up for the night. So, all right, it is time for me to wrap up as well, everybody. I am so exhausted. Tomorrow, we will be doing Find a Grave Friday. If you're new around here, every Friday at 10 a.m., I go to a cemetery where I know a particular person is buried, but I don't look up where or what the grave looks like. We figure it out in the comments and play hot and cold until I find it. I can only go for a couple of hours tomorrow. Usually it doesn't take that long, but I do have a private tour to get to eventually. We'll see what the weather is like. So, all right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Adam from Mysterious Chicago Tours. Congrats to all of the pumpkin contest people tonight. It was all just fantastic. And have a great day, a great night, happy Halloween, and stay spooky. Like, happy Halloween, everybody. Loo, loo, loo.